the outskirts of a small, forgotten town stood an old, decrepit building that was once the Lakeview Asylum. Abandoned for nearly a century, it was said to be haunted by the tortured souls of its former inhabitants. Despite the ominous warnings from the locals, I decided to explore the asylum, hoping to uncover its dark secrets. As an urban explorer with a penchant for the paranormal, I arrived at the asylum just as the sun began to set. The building loomed ominously against the darkening sky, its broken windows resembling empty eye sockets that seemed to watch my every move. Ivy had overgrown the walls, and the once grand entrance was now a crumbling ruin. I stepped inside, my flashlight barely piercing the thick darkness that enveloped the interior. The air was heavy with the smell of mildew and decay. The hallways, lined with peeling wallpaper and broken tiles, echoed with the distant sound of dripping water. I could feel an unsettling presence, as if the very walls held the memories of the suffering that had taken place there. My footsteps echoed loudly as I made my way through the asylum, the sound amplifying the eerie silence. I came across the old records room, where dusty files and papers lay scattered about. Curious, I began sifting through them, uncovering the tragic history of the asylum. Stories of cruel treatments and inhumane experiments on the patients filled the pages. Many of those who entered the asylum never left, their spirits trapped within its walls. Suddenly, I heard a faint whisper. I turned my flashlight toward the source, but there was no one there. The whispering continued, growing louder and more distinct. It seemed to come from all around me, the voices pleading and crying for help. I felt a cold shiver run down my spine, but I pressed on, determined to uncover the truth. I followed the whispers to the asylum's basement, a place rumored to be the epicenter of its darkest secrets. As I descended the creaking stairs, the air grew colder and the whispers intensified. The basement was a labyrinth of narrow hallways and small claustrophobic rooms. In one of the rooms, I found an old operating table, stained with rust and something darker. The sight of it sent a wave of nausea through me. Suddenly, the temperature dropped drastically, and a thick fog began to fill the room. Out of the corner of my eye, I saw a shadow move. I turned quickly, but again, there was no one there. The fog grew denser, and the whispers turned into anguished cries. I could feel the presence of the spirits, their pain and suffering palpable. In the midst of the fog, a figure emerged. It was a young woman, her face twisted in a grimace of agony. Her eyes, hollow and dark, stared into mine. She reached out to me, her voice a desperate plea. "Help us! Free us from this place." Terrified but determined, I knew I had to find a way to release the trapped souls. I remembered reading about a hidden room where the asylum's most horrific experiments were conducted. According to the records, the room held the key to breaking the curse. I navigated the basement's twisted corridors, guided by the whispers and cries of the spirits. Finally, I found the hidden door, concealed behind a false wall. I pushed it open, revealing a small, dark room filled with arcane symbols and ritualistic objects. In the center of the room was an old, tattered journal. I picked up the journal and began to read. It contained the notes of Dr. Harold Grayson, the asylum's chief physician and the mastermind behind the cruel experiments. The journal detailed a dark ritual he had performed, binding the souls of the patients to the asylum in a twisted attempt to achieve immortality. With the knowledge from the journal, I performed the counter ritual, reciting the ancient incantations and destroying the objects of power. As I completed the ritual, the room shook violently, and the cries of the spirits reached a deafening crescendo. Then suddenly there was silence. The fog lifted and a sense of peace filled the air. The spirits were finally free. Exhausted but relieved, I made my way out of the asylum. As I stepped outside, the first light of dawn broke through the darkness, signaling the end of a long and terrifying night. Thank you for joining us on this eerie journey through the forgotten asylum. If you enjoyed this tale, make sure to like, subscribe, and hit the bell icon for more spine-chilling stories. Sweet dream, if you can.